Well, the first thing I remember is I don't think I ever had, I don't remember eating any meal that I enjoyed. That's not to say the meal was bad, but it just wasn't anything that I liked. And to go further back, we had a neighbor, Mary McCumber, used to send us Lipton noodle soup, and that's what I drank most of the time because I couldn't stand some of the food we used to get. And I think that's because I hated shrimp, I hated fish, and I guess they thought that, you know, Japanese liked fish and shrimp maybe, but I just couldn't stand the smell of it, and I used to just going by the mess hall and just smelling it and just couldn't eat it. As we transferred to camp, well, that's the part that I would really like to just forget about. It happened so long ago, and it's part of my chapter, or I think I just like to forget about, you know, because I don't think anything that I enjoyed happened in camp for me. I don't remember eating any meal that I enjoyed. And then after camp, I guess we got out about 1946. We're fortunate to have a home to come back to, but I went to Elk Grove High School, and that was a bad experience too, because at that time there's only Caucasians and Japs. That's what we were called. And I had no Caucasian friends at all. I know there's probably at least half of the student body hated us, and I would say the other half might have felt sorry for us, but they couldn't even talk to us in the hallway because they would be called Jap lovers or something, you know. So I had no Caucasian friends. So I hate to say this, but I just never go to the reunions that we have, you know, because it wasn't such a good experience. I had no Caucasian friends at all. But see, like my brother Les and Sonny, who's 10 years younger than me, by the time they went to Elk Grove High School, all their friends were Caucasian because the hatred had died down. And then I served in the Korean War, you know, afterwards for 4 years. And then when I came back, I went to Berkeley and went to pharmacy school. And well, that's the best experience I ever had in my life, you know, and life has really been good ever since. I remember my grandfather on my dad's side, we lived in a small room, my brother Earl, my grandfather on my father's side, and myself, and he had stomach cancer. And I used to see him suffer every day, and I never saw him get any treatment because there's no doctors. See, the doctors can get out of camp as long as, you know, you weren't on the West Coast. Why would a doctor stay in camp for $19 a month when they can get out of camp and go to the East Coast, Chicago, or any place? You know, so they hardly had any doctors, no treatment at all. And I used to see him suffer every day with so much pain. And he died in camp, you know. I used to watch my grandfather on on my mother's side, and they were called Isseis because they were first generation. My grandfather came to the United States in late 1890, or by 1890, when he was 18 years old. And I remember I used to watch him play a Japanese game called, it's like Japanese checker called Go, and a Japanese chess game called Shoji or something like that. And I used to just watch him play the game. And they had nothing to do in camp, so they'd be playing games and gossiping. And I remember those Issei people talking, and one time they were saying that the only reason they don't line us up and shoot us is because they're afraid that Japan would win the war and they would be prosecuted as war criminals. And I remember my grandfather saying he had a lot more faith in America and that President Roosevelt would never do anything like that, which really stuck in my mind, you know, that he would say that. My Uncle Pedro was with the 442nd, and he used to write letters to my mom all the time, and she used to let me read the letter because I was old enough to understand, because I was the oldest in the family. I was about in the 7th, 8th, and 9th grade, so I used to read all the letters that Pedro used to write to my mother. And I remember him saying things like, it's really rough out here fighting the war in Italy, but I know, you know, that you're having a hard time too. But I get a little emotional. But he said he's fighting as hard as he can to make it easier for us, you know. See, the people, the 442nd were comprised of Nisseis, which are second generation Japanese, from Hawaii and the United States. I mean, the mainland, they call it now. And he said all the Nisseis from Hawaii would always receive packages from home with cookies and a lot of other goodies because they weren't put in camp. But the Nisseis from the mainland, like him and his friends, would never get a package because we were put in camp. My mother couldn't bake cookies or anything and send it to him. So the only thing he can look forward to was the letters that she sent him, you know, because they look forward to getting letters. And it's things like that I remember. Which I really don't want to remember, but Mario asked me to do this, so I guess that's about some of the things I remember.